And today I'm going to be introducing Mr. Dawson, the San Marcos High School principal, to be talking about the 4x4 system that we have for this school year.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. This is awesome. Thanks for putting this together, ASB, and for your continued leadership and helping our students to and families and parents to really understand this school year, to feel prepared, to feel at ease, and to be excited about the new schedule and the 4x4 in the remote environment. You want me to start off just by kind of sharing some general overview of the 4x4? Okay, so essentially we're moving guys from a 6-period day that's year-long to what's commonly known as a 4x4. So now students will have the ability to take 3 or 4 classes per term. So I want you to think of the word term as almost like synonymous with semester. So students are going to be taking fewer classes at one time, which has its advantages because I know as a high school student, toggling between 6 or 7 different classes, that was extremely challenging. Now students are going to be able to focus in on 3 or 4 classes at one time, which is going to be helpful, especially in a remote environment. I mean, you remember in spring going from one Google Classroom to another Google Classroom. It was challenging to understand the teacher's expectations, and again, just toggling between all those different classes. Students will take 3 or 4 classes per term. And then in January, after the first term ends, they will start in a brand new set of courses, okay? And they'll again take either 3 or 4 classes. So the advantages of the 4x4 is actually that students can take more classes per year. In your typical traditional schedule, you guys could take 6 classes, right? And earn 30 credits per term, per semester. That was 60 credits. Now students can take 4 classes per term, okay? And earning more credits. So it's going to totally be helpful for students in this model. Some students will be enrolled in year-long classes. And the year-long classes we've basically termed as either a support class, so either an academic success, AVID, an ELD course, a special program, for instance, ASB, Yearbook, Night's News, those special programs band that are year-long. Or we've actually made it a priority to help our 9th graders transition with a year-long English and a year-long math class to help them make that transition from middle school to high school. So those are what we're considering year-long classes. And students will take those classes both first term and second term. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Kellen.
Yeah, so you said that we had opportunity to take 4 classes a semester. Isn't there actually 5 because you can take 0 through 4? Or is
if a student is in 0 period, yeah, they could potentially go 0 through 4. That would be the max that they could actually take 5 classes per term. That's going to be unusual, but in some scenarios that may happen.
Okay.
I know some people were wondering if they're taking classes like English and math, are they only taking it half the year or is it the full year?
Yeah, so if you're a 10th, 11th, or 12th grader, you're only taking those classes for half the year. You're taking those for 1 term. If you're a 9th grader, English and math are full year classes. You're taking them for both terms.
But we still receive the same amount of credit, correct?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at the end of the term in January, students will receive 10 credits. That's a full year's worth of credit in 1 term.
For students that are only signed up for 4 classes, what will their schedule look like now?
Yeah, so if they only want and only need 4 classes, what we'll likely do is they will have 2 classes in term 1 and 2 classes in term 2. So they could hypothetically go 1, 2, they could go 0, 1, they could go 2, 3, 3, 4. I mean, there's a couple different opportunities and options for that student, but we would split it up where they would just do 2 classes per term. If they wanted to add a class, we are going to provide opportunities for students to add classes via a form, Google form, that will be put out by our counselors, and that will start after basically school has started. That first 2 weeks, students will have the ability to add a class.
So since we're only taking 4 classes, how long will the class periods be now?
Great question. So each class period in the 4x4 is 80 minutes long. Now, with remote instruction, that doesn't mean that you're going to be in front of your computer for 80 minutes per period. Because think about that. If you're taking 4 classes a day, 80 minutes per class, that's a lot of screen time. What we are essentially, what will happen for each class is you're going to minimally have 30 minutes of live instruction per period, followed by an opportunity for either small group or independent practice. So it won't be, you'll likely have an opportunity to have a break within those 80 minutes and then likely do some asynchronous learning. But every class period will have a minimum of 30 minutes live instruction for you to connect with your teacher per period per day, okay? That's the schedule for Tuesday through Friday. Monday is a little unique. Mondays are shorter. Mondays are just the 30-minute live instruction, okay? There isn't the 80 minutes of asynchronous support that you have there. It's just the 30 minutes. So it's an abbreviated Monday schedule. And the first 2 weeks of school are half days. So we're going to be, for the first 2 weeks, we're going to be rolling with the Monday schedule, which is all periods for a half hour. That's what the first 2 weeks will look like. The other neat and interesting thing that I'm sure you've heard about is that we're adding an advisory period. So the advisory period will be a 30-minute period that you have every day, with the exception of Monday. You have it Tuesday through Friday, and you'll have an advisory teacher that you will work with that teacher on college and career readiness, social emotional support. There'll be counseling push-ins, there'll be link crew push-ins, there'll be peer mentors. So it's an opportunity for students to connect with each other on a variety of grade levels. So they'll actually be mixed grade levels. Go ahead.
So before we hopefully go into a hybrid format, will there be an advisory period during the online?
Yeah, no, we're gonna start the advisory the 3rd week of school. So once we go to that, the first week of school is just the half days. The first 2 weeks of school, the half days. But after the 2nd week of school, moving into that 3rd week, we have the 80-minute periods and we have advisory. Yep. It'll almost be like a class on your schedule. You'll show up. It won't show up as like because it's unique. I think it'll show up as like a 8th or a 9th period on your schedule.
What will AP classes look like this year?
Yeah, so that's definitely the piece that we're really focused on and helping our students to be prepared and to feel ready for the May exams. So we are trying to push as many AP classes to first term, because that is the most amount of instruction that students will get is first term. They'll have all that time. I believe it's 19 weeks of instruction. Second term students have a fewer weeks because remember, the AP exams are kind of in the beginning of May throughout the month of May. So we are trying to push as many AP classes to first term. In addition, we're working with our AP teachers and talking about opportunities for first term students to have spring review sessions, okay? So whether that's on Mondays, when you have shorter periods, or even on Saturdays, for you to work with your teacher on review sessions so that you are ready to go for the AP exam in May. Second term students, we want to work with AP teachers on ways that second term students can get enrolled in the AP classroom and even receive front loading on the content and curriculum that they'll need to be successful. So almost spacing it out, if you will, so that students have more than just those 19 weeks, opportunities to review some of the content, read some of the material before heading into their second term class. And I know our AP teachers are very, very eager to set up this process so that, because they want you to be successful as much as you and your parents want you to be successful on the AP exams. Good question. Go ahead, Zach.
So I have a question about the term. So the term, will it be, I know the term is a semester, will that be split into quarters as well, or just semesters or quarters? How does that work?
Good question. We're just going to do terms. So we're going to do a term 1, which will actually end in January. I think it's the 22nd. And then term 2. So you will be issued 10 credits at the end of the terms. We're not going to be doing quarters. What we are going to be doing is we're going to be doing 3 progress reports home each term. So there'll be 3 progress reports. Those grades don't go on your transcript, but they're a snapshot of how you're doing. Okay. And then you get the 1 term grade worth 10 credits. We felt like that would really be in line with our true standard-based grading, that, you know, the game's not over until the class is over. So we really wanted to help protect our students' transcripts and that whole mindset of not yet. So it's a gradual progression throughout the year as you're learning necessary skills and content to be successful at the end of the term, okay? Good questions. What else you guys got?
Go ahead, Kellen.
Go ahead, Kellen.
So I was going to say back to the AP quickly. So I know
Yeah.
you're saying for students that were taking AP second semester, you're going to try to feel like they can, like, you know, front load the information first semester. I think it would be important though to like either figure that out if we can make it where it's not so difficult where they're adding on an extra, they're adding an extra class to their first term, because that could be problematic of adding, like feeling you're adding another class even though you're not really enrolled in it that first term. So I think that's an important note for like the AP teachers.
I totally agree, and I hear you. It wouldn't have the components of actually being in the class, and it would be optional too. This wouldn't be required. This would be, here's some content that will help you so that the pace wouldn't have to be so drastic. So if you need additional time to read texts, then you could pre-read some of these so that the reading and the amount of reading wouldn't be so much for the student.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are students who originally signed up for PE able to do independent study PE as like their 4th period class instead?
So the process for independent study PE will be the same this year as it has been in the past. Families will need to apply for independent study PE, and the requirements aren't changing for independent study PE. So if they were approved, then they would be approved through the district office, and then they would be enrolled in the independent study PE portion.
Then if students are taking year-long classes and don't have enough space for the other remaining classes, how will that be handled?
Yeah, that's a great question. In some instances, students will have to prioritize. So if a student is enrolled in a lot of year-long programs, let's use the example of AVID, BAND, even maybe ASB, they may have to prioritize in some of their other electives. So they may have to say, you know what, I want to do all my year long. I want to be a part of AVID. I want to be a part of BAND. I want to be a part of ASB. They may have to prioritize and say, I want to take this world language either at Palomar, or I'm going to take it next year, or I'm going to take only 1 elective as opposed to 2 electives. You know, they also have the 0 period option where students could do the 0 period. I know we have those available as well. The other thing is we are also going to be trying to build in some PE standards into classes like AVID and ROTC and personal development, so that students don't have to take their PE course. So they could actually have those PE standards within some of the other existing courses that they have, so that that doesn't put so many students into a position where they have to, you know, choose because it's of conflicting year-long courses.
Jumping back to how you said you're pushing APs for first semester, does that mean that we're allowed to request a class to take what classes we want to take first semester versus second semester?
Yeah, that's a great question. That just becomes way too consuming. And honestly, if we, we couldn't accommodate every student's request to do that. So we are building a schedule that works with students' requests and our availability for staff and who teaches what. So while I say we are trying to put most of our AP courses first term, there are still plenty of AP courses second term. We're trying our best to do it. We can't accommodate students' requests to say, ooh, I would really love to have ceramics first term and this class second term. It's just we can't accommodate that. We can accommodate what you've requested, but we can't do preferential terms of what you want to take. Now, the counselors are going through every single schedule and making sure that there aren't any holes in the student schedule. What we are trying to look at is a balance of cognitive load. So ideally, a student wouldn't have math, science, English, history in term 1, and then PE elective, in term 2. We are trying to do some cognitive balance so that going back to Kellen, your point that you're not overwhelmed in one particular term. Go ahead. Yeah, you guys have great questions. Just keep going.
Sorry. Can students add, drop, or change classes like at the beginning of the year, since we are transitioning to a new model and they might not be comfortable with the courses that they chose before this model?
Yeah, we realize that this is a change, and we are going to be allowing some revisions in our policies to allow students to either drop a class or add a class. So the drop window for an AP class will be a little smaller though than the add. So we will allow drops within the first week, and we're gonna start that Wednesday. So it would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the first week of school. Students will have the ability to drop a course. Okay, adds will be a little bit longer. We'll keep that open for the week after as well if students want to add a class. And again, the adding of classes is going to be very much based on what's available. But we do want to provide students the opportunity to do that. Counselors will send out those 2 separate forms. It's an add form and then it's a drop form. It's an electronic form, and you could put your request in that form by the deadline. And we'll also share those deadlines again with all the students. Those will be the first week and then the second week of school. Go ahead.
So do you think for like kids that want to add classes, and if like, for example, I wanted to take sociology as an extra class, but it has space in the schedule. But with this new model, if I have an extra class in like my second term, will counselors be able to like prioritize students that had it as like a first backup option as an elective? Is that higher chance, or do you think not?
Yeah, I mean, I think the counselors are going to do their best to look at what alternatives were already scheduled. Is that what you're referring to? Like if you had a backup already scheduled, I think they're going to do their best to try to look at what you had as a backup to accommodate that. We'll have to see as we kind of get in there and start playing and see what's available. But that is one of the selling points of, moving to a 4x4 is it's providing students with more options. And so we want to capitalize on that.
What time is class going to start? First period and then 0 period is also.
Yeah, that's a great question. So 0 period is actually going to start. We're looking at a 7 o'clock start time for 0 period with 80-minute periods. And then first period would start at 8:30 now. So in line with what we did last year, but also in line with the new legislation that is having secondary schools start at 8:30. The school day would end a little bit later because it's an 8:30 start time. So the end of fourth period, and remember, not everyone has a fourth period. Even freshmen may not have a fourth period. The end of the fourth period would be now 3:40. So it does push that back a little bit.
Another counseling related question is, when should we contact our counselors if we need to make changes?
So the counselors are really working hard right now on just converting your 6-period day into the 4x4, making sure that there aren't any holes, and holes meaning like you have a first period, you don't have a second, you have a third and your fourth. That's a problem. You can't have a hole in your schedule like that. So we're going through and we're fixing all of that right now. The counselors will send out a form, the add form and the drop form, during the first week of school. This way everyone has access to it at the same time, and everyone will be able to submit their requests at the same time. So it's fair. They'll do those changes during the first and the second week of school after they've fixed your schedule. So what we're asking is, go to your schedule that you have. Then we'll make the adjustments the first and the second week of school.
For dual and concurrent enrollment options, they were mentioned, but no details were really given. What are the new policies for these options?
Yeah, so late spring, I sent an email out to all students about participating in the Palomar dual and concurrent enrollment programs. Palomar will be offering a number of courses that students can enroll in for concurrent enrollment. Those are posted, we posted them on our website under the counseling, and you can click on that and you can find some of the courses that are available that you can sign up for dual or concurrent enrollment with Palomar. Great, and those are obviously all additional courses that you could take. I highly recommend you participate in the dual or concurrent enrollment program. And there are instructions. You do have to sign up for a Palomar ID, and you have to go through the process for Palomar, but those instructions are online and links are online for students to do that process.
Will students still get help with their college counseling process while online?
Yeah, absolutely. Our counselors, and as well as our college and career counselors, will be available to support students through the college apps process. I mean, this is a whole new that we haven't seen. I know that there's a high level of angst in applying in that application process. There's a couple ways that counselors will support. Obviously, you could email your counselor for assistance. The counselors will also be coordinating push-ins into advisory periods. And I know that our college and career counselors will be creating videos and helpful tips and links to support you through that process. I know that they'll be doing virtual support sessions where you can sign up to work one-on-one with a college and career counselor. So we have to think of things still occurring, but just they're occurring differently now. Instead of walking into someone's office, you're making it a virtual appointment, and it's just, in some cases, maybe it could be even more efficient now. It's just, things are just being done differently than they've done in the past. But we will continue to support students with resources for college and career preparation and everything we have done in the past.
And then the final one of the counseling questions is, if the 4x4 schedule is too hard, do students have another option?
No. So if you've chosen, there's two options that students could choose, either the remote/hybrid or the LEVS, the virtual school. If you've chosen the remote hybrid, which is you're at San Marcos High School, which we're doing the 4x4, students can't opt to say, I'm not going to participate in the 4x4. That is the only scheduling that we have. Now, what you could do is, once you get your schedule and once you've gone, remember there's that 3-day drop window of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday during the first week. You could say, wow, I'm really overloaded, and you'll have the ability to drop a class. So that's the out if you're just like, wow, this is a lot.
And then really quick, bouncing off of that, say you're a senior and you have a total of 5 classes. Are we going to be able to choose if it's 2 classes first term and 3 classes second term, or is that going to be predetermined for us?
So minimally, you have to be enrolled in 2 courses per term. Okay, that's the requirement, is minimally 2 per term. I think if there's availability and you have a special circumstance, you could probably potentially request, can I do my 3 in term 1 and 2 in term 2? or vice versa. Let's say you're working. Again, if there's availability, I think you could make a request. Say, I'd like to do my 3 classes in term 1 and only 2 in term 2. I think the way that most we operate is we'll try to do your 3 classes in term 1 and your 2 classes in term 2.
Back off of that, sorry, Kellen. For seniors, I know some people were wondering if they could just if they're only taking like 4 classes, to do it only in the fall and then technically like be graduated for the spring semester. Is that a possibility for the seniors?
Yeah, it is. And that's essentially, I mean, they could have done that in the brick and mortar too. It's basically called an early grad. So you would have to work with your counselor. There's actually an early grad form, and you would have to, if you met the requirements for graduation and you signed up for the classes, you could be an early grad in January. Yeah. You need to work with your counselor on making sure that you have your requirements though.
Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Kellen Bynes. I'm the junior class president next year. So one question that I have is, when it comes to like the hybrid, when we go back in hybrid and you have the A and B tracks, how will those tracks be decided?
Yeah, so basically what we've done is we would if and when we can go back to in person, we're taking every class that exists and just splitting them in half. So half of that class would be on the A track, half would be on B track. Completely random. However, the only thing that's not random is siblings. So if you have siblings in a household and we look at the address, then we will put those siblings on the same track, either A track or B track.
Okay. And then you discussed what the advisory period was, but can you explain if there's going to be like a specific teacher we're going to have for that advisory period?
Yeah, so in some instances, if you're in either a special program or a special group, you may be rostered with that program. So I'm going to use Bonnie, for example. She's likely going to have an ASB rostered advisory. So obviously she can't have every student in ASB in her advisory, but she'll probably have a cluster or a chunk. I'm thinking of maybe some other groups. Maybe there's a yearbook advisory, and those students maybe have yearbook with Mr. Clements. But every student would have an advisory, and the student's teacher would be on their schedule, and they would go to that Tuesday through Friday. There would be push-ins. Ideally, we'd love to try to keep the advisory teacher. Obviously, that advisory teacher would be all year, but we'd even like to look into a multi-year advisory teacher. Obviously, that wouldn't make sense for seniors, but for the underclassmen, that perhaps you would have the same advisory teacher for multiple years to help guide you through the entire high school career. Okay.
And then just to clarify for the advisory, it's not really a period for like to continue the curriculum that's being taught, right? It's like a separate.
No, yeah, it's when we think about every student having a trusted adult on campus to connect with, to go to for help, support, resources, that is the one set aside period that you will have that trusted adult that you can for sure be able to meet the needs that you have, and that you're able to ask questions, that you're able to find out more information. So that advisory period is very intentional in setting a community that will help you be successful in all of your classes. And so there will be opportunities for you to do some reflection. There'll be opportunities again to receive information, to work one-on-one with your advisory teacher, to receive information from people coming in doing push-in lessons, and to ask questions as well.
Okay. And then, oh, sorry, you go.
Sorry, I just have another question about advisory. So for advisory, it's like you have advisory and then lunch, and then vice versa, right? Like lunch and then advisory.
So in a hybrid, so in the remote model, everyone has advisory at the same exact time, and then they have lunch. In a hybrid, if and when we go back to school, half of the school will have first advisory and then second lunch. Half of the school will have first lunch and second advisory. One, it's to obviously reduce the amount of students who are at lunch at the same time. It's really what it's all about. And two, it's to make sure that we have enough rooms to accommodate smaller groups of students in advisory periods.
And then for that, also for students that are wanting to get out at lunch, would they have advisory period and then go home, or would they have to have lunch, advisory, and then go home?
So right now, advisory is slotted in between second and third. So students, almost every student would have 2 periods. They would go their 2 periods, and then they would have advisory. So it'll capture almost all of our students.
Okay. And then kind of like zooming out, are you like the admin team thinking of having this 4x4 schedule, not just this year, but also in the following years? And then if so, are students going to be able to vote on that type of decision?
Yeah, so the 4x4 is definitely it's an investment in terms of time. Our teachers are gearing up. It's a whole commitment. This is not we do not want this to be a 1-year kind of fix. This is a long-term investment that has a lot of benefits to the overall impact of the school. I've already shared a number of them, but we definitely want to continue the 4x4 so that it gives our students more opportunities for credits, and so that we can just help along the process. Now, in terms of feedback, I think students will always have a voice in providing feedback in making the model better from year to year. That's for sure. So I think we need student voice in the process of how things are going, and we'll always ask for student voice to make those tweaks.
Okay. And then just to clarify, the most amount of classes a student can take in a whole school year is 8, correct?
In a 4x4.
Yeah,
So,
4x4.
So in some cases, I'm sure there will be some students who actually go 0 through 4. That's a rarity, and we really, taking 10 classes in a year is a lot, especially if they're term. A lot of information. We wouldn't recommend that, but there may be some students in special programs that may want to do that. The least amount, students have to take 2 classes per term. That's
and then when it comes
to a range.
Yeah. And then when it comes to classes like arts classes and ceramics and science classes that have like labs, how are those going to look virtually and then back in the 4x4?
Yeah, so let's talk about CTE and ceramics. That was a question. I know at the end in the spring, I know our CTE teachers and Mr. Stout and Miss Freddie, worked with students to allow them to pick up supplies from the school, so that they can continue with hands-on learning. And we would allow that again this school year, where students came to the school in an appointment style and picked up some art supplies, ceramics, clay, maybe a wood assembly, and then they would continue some of that hands-on learning at home. That is the best that we can do, is providing them with that. Obviously, all teachers will continue to have the Google Classroom. They will be instructing. I'm sure they'll do live demos from their classroom. I think they're going to do everything they can to make it as real and as beneficial as possible.
Okay. And then can you clarify like how our grades are going to look and how a GPA is going to be created? Is it any different than last year?
Yeah, so obviously, grading, it does have to be different in the sense that we've been talking to our staff about assessments that really focus on the development of skills, of critical thinking skills, reading, writing, speaking, problem solving, okay, creatively taking a task and breaking it down and solving it, moving away from assessments that can be Googled or that are just sheer memorization of knowledge, right? So really, we want students having the ability where they can dive deep into text and be able to respond, to compare and contrast 2 different texts and come up with a theme, application of the content, not just memorization an understanding, but an application of it. And that's where that problem solving comes in. So we do expect our assessments to look different, where you're responding and you're applying what you've learned or what you've read, as opposed to just information that can be Googled.
Okay, and then our GPAs will be accumulated the same way as last year, correct?
Oh yeah, same exact way. The only difference with your transcripts is instead of having 6 classes per semester, you're going to have likely 3 or 4. And instead of it showing as 5 credits, it's going to show as 10 credits, right? Because you're taking a whole year in one term.
Okay. And then how will athletic PE look like? First, kids are taking football and baseball.
So we are, we realize that a number of sports, especially now, have been moved to the winter and spring. So we are committed to helping our sports programs have that year-long feel. And so those would be considered as a year-long program during 4th period.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So I'm Zane Goldman. I'm going to be sophomore class president. So my first question is, what will the student to teacher ratio look like?
So with remote instruction, ideally, we're looking at classes where anywhere between 30 to 36. I know that we're hoping that they will be smaller because of the amount of students who are going to be moving and transitioning to the LEV school. So I do think that there'll be slightly better ratios in this new remote instruction. The other thing is that in a 4x4, teachers are teaching 6 classes now. So we've actually added, every teacher has been added 1 more class. And so when you add classes, the ratios go down. But with that, students are taking more classes. So there's that too. So I hope somewhere between mid to low 30s. With the hybrid model, that'll just be split in half, A day, B day.
All right, thank you. My next question is, are we going to be virtual for the entire first semester?
To be determined. I would assume that we're going to be virtual for at least the first 6 weeks, but we need to work closely with the governor and CDC. We have to be cleared of all COVID indicators for at least 14 days clear. And so we have to stay closely aligned with what the county is doing and how the indicators are reading. But I know, everyone's desire is to get back into a classroom, but we have to do it safely. And we wouldn't do anything without a clear reopening plan. And there isn't a clear reopening plan that's been approved by the board yet.
So some questions regarding of what it would look like in a classroom. If we end up back in schools and are sitting in desks, would we be sitting in desks with plexiglass? Can we take off masks at our desk? How would that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Every student would actually be given one of those gaiters. So every student would be given a mask. Students would have to wear masks. The district has also bought every student a plexiglass barrier. I guess it's like a trifold. When you take a test and it's those cardboard trifolds, picture that only in a plexiglass style. And you would transport that from class to class. So you would have that barrier in front of you. You would be wearing a mask. I know a student asked if they were sitting, would they have to keep their mask on? And to be honest, I would have to get us. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. If you were sitting, because I know at restaurants when you're sitting, you can take off your mask, but that's because you're eating. So, but that I can't answer that question yet. But you would obviously have to wear your mask in the building. You have the plexiglass, keeping social distance, and obviously in trying to manage that as the best that we can in our hallways.
Quick question. Do you know how big the plexiglass barrier will be? Because is it like touching the ground? Is it just connected to the desk?
It would sit on top of your desk, and it just goes to about forehead level.
All right.
For most students, yeah.
Okay. My next question is, will there be assigned spots at lunch?
No, so if we were again able to come back, there wouldn't be assigned spots at lunch. We would be, remember, cutting our lunch into A-Day, B-Day, right? So half the school cut in half, and then it's cut in half again because there's two different lunches. So the lunch would look a lot different from what you guys are typically used to with 3,600 students, cut it in half twice, and then we would likely have additional tables throughout the quad. We would probably do something different with CNS, with food distribution. It would look different, but saying that you are assigned to this seat, we haven't decided that.
All right. My next question is, will students go straight to their first period when they arrive at school, or can we socialize in the morning like normal?
So in the hybrid model, if we were to be allowed to come on campus, before going to either 0 or first, every student and staff has to go through a temperature check. So you would have to enter through one of our main access points. We have the 2, and you would receive a quick temperature check. It's a touchless thermometer. Then you would go to class. If a supervisor saw a group of 20 kids standing around in a circle, yeah, they would say, look, we have social distancing parameters. You guys, you have to spread out. With that said, I mean, walking to class, you're going to have to use your 6 feet judgment, and I think everyone's going to do their best to follow that.
Alrighty, my next question. Oh, Kellen, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, with that, saying about like the socializing before school and everything like that, and then the hallways, are you going to be able to control the ways we travel in the hallways? Like, what staircases we take?
Yeah, so we had started to brainstorm some of our hallways being one way. So there would be arrows that if you take the stairwell, the entire stairwell is up, and then this entire segment of the hallway is one way. We would have to put once we get closer, we're going to put a little more concrete plans to that. But we were thinking about our stairwells being one way, especially because of how tight those stairwells get. We were also, we added minutes to the passing periods, 10 minutes in total, 10 minutes to provide for that extra travel that would come with one-way hallways.
And I'm assuming that 10-minute break, kind of what we call it, passing period, will be brought over into the online as well, right? So you won't go from period 1 to period 2 in a few minutes.
Yeah, the bell schedule for the remote would continue as the same bell schedule in the hybrid model.
All right. So my last question is, what is the safety plan for if a child or a teacher in the class tests positive for COVID?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know our district office is working with our health folks in safe procedures, but if anyone were to be diagnosed with COVID, I know that specifically those students' classes would be moved to the remote instruction for sure. Now, with regards to the remaining of the school, I would need to work with our district office on further steps of what that would look like. How many other classes would be shut down, and so on. So again, that's one of those questions that we have to answer, and that would be part of our reopening plan as we get closer to that.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
So now I'm going to be asking the more random questions that didn't fit into those other categories. So the first question is, where do I go to pick whether I want to do online or hybrid?
So that survey was sent to every student's family. And the survey was actually for the first round. It was due midnight last night. And so parents were committing to either the virtual school or to the remote instruction / hybrid. Most of our families did commit already. However, there are still a chunk who haven't committed. So on the very front of our website is the survey, the form to commit to the learning pathway. And that'll be open at least until Tuesday or Wednesday.
What is the PSAT going to look like?
Yeah, so we've been in touch with College Board, and they're saying that the PSAT will be offered on the Saturday administration, and they're saying that it will be done in person. But that leaves me with a lot of concerns as to how many students we can accommodate and do that safely. So I still have a lot of questions regarding doing the PSAT in person, because College Board's not saying that it's a virtual administration. So I have to find out more information of the PSAT, because at San Marcos we have hundreds of kids who take the Saturday PSAT, and I'm not ready to bring back hundreds of kids. So,
will state testing affect the pace of the second semester?
So there hasn't been an official ruling on the state testing for the 2021 school year. So we don't know if we're going to have the CASP or if we're not going to have the CASP. So I will say, let's say if we do have it, we're already in block, right? Because in the past we've had to shift over to block scheduling to do the testing. The good news is that in a 4x4, everything's block. There isn't 56-minute periods. So that would actually help with accommodating the testing. And typically testing is it's only juniors. So it wouldn't impact 9th, 10th, or 12th graders. And then the window for testing is roughly a week to 2 weeks where students take those state tests. So if we have it, it would be only our juniors. And personally, I think it would have less impact because we're already in a block period.
For the hybrid model, when we go back, will parking be open to more students due to the hybrid when we return, or will it be the way that it was this year?
Yes. So there's a huge perk. I mean, as oddly as it sounds, but yes. So since you're only having half of you have an A day, B day, since only half, we can have double the amount of parking permits. So there's a huge silver lining right there. Let's give it up for that.
Awesome. So if a student has a job now and wants to continue working, will attendance be taken during class periods, or can the student just get their work done and turn it in?
So there will be some sort of attendance, and that will be, something that I do, it wasn't asked, but I'll mention, is that we're actually going to be shifting over to Zoom this school year. So instead of the Google Meets, teachers are going to be using Zoom. And we are looking at a feature that attendance could be taken through Zoom. So we will be taking attendance. In terms of the job, not all 80 minutes won't be live instruction. So I guess there's some flexibility in that, but minimally the first 30 minutes of every period, student will need to be logged on and participating.
So also going back to the add or drop forms, well, usually for course selection, the upperclassmen usually get a priority, and then it continues down lower. Will the same happen for the add or drop forms, or will it be first come, first serve?
So for a number of electives that are highly sought after, ceramics, even now this art, we've even the last couple of years haven't been able to accommodate freshmen in art. We would still fill a number of those sections with our seniors first, juniors, sophomores, and then freshmen. Our CTE programs, we really want to provide strong pathways. So pathways are 2 or 3 years of specialization in a pathway. And so those are much different. Those we want to encourage freshmen to get into our CTE pathways so that they can take 2 or 3 years of a specialized pathway. So I guess to answer your question, it depends.
And then for AP classes, we know that you can drop an AP class, but can you also add them onto your schedule for this year?
Yes, totally. Yeah, we would absolutely. So that would be part of that larger open window for adding a class. And that'll be specifically through the add form, and then we have the other form, the drop form. The drop form will be open for the 3 days. Then the add form will be open for the 3 days and then the week after.
Perfect. That's all the questions that I have.
What else? This is good stuff. You guys have really taken some really careful thought, which it's awesome. I know we want to provide all of our students and our staff and our families a rewarding remote and then potentially, hybrid experience. We want our students to be excited, to be successful, to feel that they're cared for, and that every adult on our campus wants to see you successful.
So with that, Mr. Dawson, thank you so much. Kellen, did you have another question there?
Yes. Do you have a thought about how registration is going to work for students who want to start registering?
Sorry, say that again.
Registration. Sorry, my garage is getting fixed. Registration. How's that looking?
Okay, great question. So residency verification has already opened up, which is registration is going to totally look different. In the past, you would come for a few hours, you would go through multiple lines, you would pick up your schedule, you pick up your books. This year, it's going to look different in a number of ways. First thing is that residency verification, which is how you prove that you live within our boundaries, that's being done all online. That's on our website. You go to our front page of our website and you just click on the returning student registration. It takes your student, your parent, to the parent view, and your parent completes all the necessary steps. They actually upload and scan in the documents needed for verification, for residency verification. That's the first step. And that's open now. We actually did a dial out home on Friday. So parents should be doing that all this week. We will start to do Chromebook distribution and pictures next week. So the week of August 10th to the 14th, we're going to be doing a dial out to either tonight or tomorrow, indicating which day and time you're to come to get your Chromebook and take your school picture. We're not doing like the finance office that we've done in the past. We're not handing out schedules because you have it on through your student view. And then lastly, we're not going to do textbook distribution until the first week of school. So there's 2 visits that a student will have to make. They'll make one visit the week of August 10th to the 14th to get a Chromebook and to have their picture taken. And then the next week, they'll come back and pick up books. Okay, so we've kind of broken it into 2 much shorter steps. If you're a brand new student and coming from either a charter or a private school, we have new student enrollment on our website as well. And that's a little bit of a different form paperwork, but still have to prove residency.
So thank you, Mr. Dawson, and also our presidents here. I just want to also say welcome to San Marcos High School. We will have a freshman orientation on August 17th. So any freshmen that are watching, we'll be sending out specifically to you to meet some upperclassmen in small groups. So we encourage you to do that, as well as we'll have a new student orientation as well. So if you're a brand new student to our school and would like more information, we'll have a special thing for that. And then we have what we call Minga, and it's an app that you download to get information about our school, about clubs, about all different kinds of things. We post everything on there. Our code is SMHS, all capital letters. So it's super easy to get into. But also each of your class presidents have someone that runs our social media accounts that are class of accounts. So they're class of 2021 2021, class of 2022, class of 2023. We even have a class of 2024 now. Pretty scary thinking. And we also have the ASB one. So if you want, we keep posting things on those sites. So please visit those, and we'll keep updating you with information besides the emails and the updates you get from the school as well. So we're looking forward to it, and this will be posted on the website and on those sites as well. So if you missed part of it, or you have somebody who wanted to see it, that can see all of this information there as well. Zane?
I have one more last question just about the registration. So what if people aren't here, like on vacation or out of town, for the picture and Chromebook pickup?
So we will accommodate them after school starts, and we'll provide information about when makeup days will be for the picture and Chromebook pickup. Good question.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, ASB leaders and class presidents, for your time. This was huge. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Perfect. Zane, I'm so glad you asked that question. If I have a computer at home, or a student has a computer at home, do they have to pick up a Chromebook?
Yeah, so great question. So we want every student to actually have a San Marcos Chromebook, because if and when we do come back to the hybrid model, there are certain security features that won't allow it. It's called a bring your own device, and it does not permit, because of the filters, for your computer to work. So we want every student to have a San Marcos Chromebook. You're going to get one. If you're at home and you prefer to use your Mac, no one's going to tell you that you can't, but you're going to be given a Chromebook, especially in case if something happens, or if a family member needs to borrow your computer, you will always have, that won't be an excuse. You'll have a San Marcos Chromebook.
And then they'll bring their Chromebook to school every day.
Correct.
When we go back to hybrid, is the way I
Correct.
understand.
Correct. Okay. We're moving to what's called a one-to-one. Every student has their own computer, and the classrooms won't have Chrome carts anymore. Do you remember how you would share computers and you would go to your English and you get, those no longer exist. You will have your computer for all 4 years, or 1 or 2 or 3, or however long you have, longer you have.
Okay, I think we're done. So
thank you guys so much. Welcome again to all of our freshman nights and freshman families. Thank you so much for participating. I do want to say this, watch for your email, because we send very important emails to students and parents via email, and then obviously phone calls as well. Continue to check our website. I know it's old school website, but there's a lot of good information on the website. And then obviously Minga, our Instagram, and all the other social platforms that we have. Stay in touch. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thank you.
Miss you guys.